I am a daughter, a sister, a niece, a cousin, a granddaughter, a friend, a godmother. I was so hesitant to transition into the sales role because of the possibility of I didn't want to fail. If somebody tells you no, you're simply asking the wrong person. As women and as a community, we do need to get better at, I personally definitely need to get better at taking a compliment and taking a recognition. Just treat others how you want to be treated. I think that's like, and it's funny, that's the golden rule, but it really is.
Louise DiIulio is the Chief Client Officer at Advertising Week, where she leads global partnerships with brands like Netflix, Google, TikTok, and Amazon. Over 12 years, she's expanded the brand across 5 continents and built some of the world's most iconic events. Beyond that, Louise champions women worldwide as co-chair of Futurist Female Awards and the co-host of their podcast series. Thank you so much for joining me. I know you're extremely busy. You're planning Advertising Week New York. So having your time for the Strategic Salary Series, I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I was so flattered when I got your email and that you asked me.
No, of course.
So funny. This is, I think, maybe our first time actually meeting. I know we've emailed a ton, and you won our award. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And our Futurist Female Award back in London. And I guess it was April or May, but we never had a chance to meet in person. So I'm so excited to do this.
I know, finally. So, it was actually my birthday.
Yes, that's right. I knew there was like legit, like a good reason you couldn't come. Yeah.
Yeah, it was my birthday, but it was such a lovely birthday and a lovely treat to win the award as well. So thank you. It was, but yeah, this conversation's long overdue.
Yes. Very excited. We're both LD, so we have LD squared coming at you.
Exactly. It was just meant to be.
It is.
So I'm going to jump straight into it. Louise, you have been with Advertising Week for over 12 years now. You are the Chief Client Officer. So congratulations. That's a huge feat.
Thank you.
How did you join the industry? Was it intentional? Have you always wanted to work in this industry?
So it's funny. I think I almost joined it on accident, if I'm honest.
Okay.
So I knew I always wanted to be in media in some kind of capacity. I majored in PR in college and was very focused and thought PR was it for me and I was going to work in PR. I did a bunch of internships in college and everything from marketing to PR and kind of in between. I even worked at like a sports agency with like talent management kind of. And then I graduated college in 2012 and it wasn't the best time to be looking for jobs. And despite having all my internship experience, I was struggling getting interviews. So I finally got this interview at this company called Stillwell Partners that ran something called Advertising Week. And funnily enough, I had worked an Advertising Week event as an intern when I interned for Billboard. And so I was familiar with it a little bit and like didn't really know. And I was like, okay, whatever. I'm not getting any other interviews. I might as well just go for good interview practice. Like the role didn't really feel like a fit. It didn't seem like something I really wanted. But I went and I was like, okay, it'll be good practice. So I ended up going for the interview. I actually canceled my first interview because I was sick and asked to reschedule. I finally went and I met it was a super small team. There was I think I was like full-time employee number 5 or 6. And so I met with the guys, and I say guys because it was just like literally 3 men I met with. And we really hit it off. And we really connected and we like just was super normal and chill and just felt good. And so, then I went back and I met Matt Scheckner the next week. I had met Lance Pillersdorf, who they co-founded Advertising Week. I met him first, and like I said, we really got along. We hit it off. We talked about work, but also more about like life, just kind of like connecting and meeting someone. And I went back the next week and met Matt, and and that was December 2012, and I've kind of been there forever. So I definitely was not intentionally looking to like advertising or B2B or anything I knew I did enjoy the events aspect of it.
Okay.
But certainly when I started, I had no intention of being there still 12 years later. I remember I
Wow.
started and I was like, these guys are kind of crazy. And if you know Matt and Lance, they're definitely crazy, but good crazy. I was like, this is like really weird and fun and funny, but like I'll be here a year. Maybe I'll get my foot in the door and kind of like find a real job, if you
Mm.
will. And then now it's, I don't know, what is it, September 2025, and still there.
Wow, that is kind of unheard of
Yeah.
because nowadays you usually see people jump around every 2 to 3 years to go and find a new role, whether that's because of salary or progression. But if you had to summarize, like what kept you at Advertising Week, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah. I think, you know, I had mentioned we were such a small team to begin with.
Hmm.
Um, and it really felt this like it was totally a labor of love, as silly as that might sound. I actually joined, I think, 3 months right before or the first ever Advertising Week Europe in
Okay.
London. So it was like, I mean, and they were kind of running around with like, a little bit of like chicken with their head cut off, getting ready to do this event. And not that I was the answer by any means.
Yeah.
I had no idea what I was doing. I remember when I started, didn't even understand what they meant when they kept saying, we're going to run a seminar. We're going to run a seminar. I was like, all right, I'll just act like I know it. um, and, it was kind of like pushing, but it was so passionate. And everybody was there to kind of work together and make this thing that we all cared so much about. Um, and through the years, it became, we all became so close because you work on. It's funny, people say in the event world, like 1 year, one event is equal to, I feel like, 7 years in anywhere else or anything else. And we
Okay.
kind of all went through the ringer, and we really, it was the people that kept me there. I loved working with them. Matt, Lance, and I became, really close. We're still pretty close. Very close. I'm very close to their families. It's funny in hindsight, I was like, I'm not going to stay there, forever. And now I like text with both their children, and like, we're all super close. And, um, I think, and I'm very thankful to them for, not even just giving me the initial chance when I knew nothing coming out of college. And I was just kind of like, all right, I'll be here. But, even allowing me to stay for so long. And yeah, it was a labor of love.
Thank you for sharing. That's yeah, as I mentioned, it's unheard of. And well, not unheard of, but it's very rare in today's job market. But it sounds like you've got a really rare connection there, a good bond, which is lovely.
100%. And, I know how rare it is. And it is lovely. And it's nice because you're all working together. And I appreciate the idea of, if I screw something up, I'm not going to
Mm.
let down. It's not just my job that isn't going to do good, or I'm going to look bad. Like, I'm also going to let down all these other people that I spend so much time with and that, are working really hard to do something too.
Yeah.
And we've grown a lot over the years, and it certainly is still like that. But there's almost nothing comparable to that, like startup-y, hit the ground running, grit, mentality.
Yeah.
And I look back on those years fondly. It was certainly hard, and it was a lot of work. And I think we all were doing like 8 jobs. But it was. I look back on them fondly, and it was a lot of fun. And yeah, and it was. I can't believe it's been 12 years.
Still quite a lean team, given how huge the brand is. Like you would assume that there's hundreds of people behind the scenes making this run like clockwork. But that's impressive because the events are quite big and iconic, especially the one in London. But yeah, that is a very lean team.
Very lean. And I think, it still comes down to, we are all really passionate about what we do. And,
Mm.
um, you got to put the work in. And now we're led by Ruth Mortimer, who and I'm sure a lot of listeners know. And she is, I'd say the best example of, putting your heart into it and kind of really, taking everything with pride and really, really showing, letting the work speak for itself, if you will.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you've built something impressive. So congratulations.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, I like to ask all guests this question. I'm a big
Yes.
fan of LinkedIn,
Okay.
and I would love for our listeners to know what's one thing that we can't tell from your LinkedIn profile or your CV? Who is the Louise behind the job title?
That's a good question. Who am I? I am a daughter, a sister, a niece, a cousin, a granddaughter, a friend, a godmother. My family and friends are super important to me. And I think, even with work, you know, and life, I think relationships are the foundation of kind of what else are we doing here really?
Hmm.
If you don't have people around you who you love and you just feel for and have that connection. Um, I guess you could maybe see this on my LinkedIn given how long I've been at the same company, but I'd say I'm fiercely loyal. Is probably my like main answer. Fiercely loyal, I think sometimes to a fault. Which can be a good thing and a bad thing. I like to think.
Thank you for sharing. I love that. Fiercely loyal. I would say I'm very similar in terms of, and I love the way you just introduced yourself because if I'm on a panel or if I am public speaking, I always lead with I'm the elder sister of three fierce younger sisters. I am my
I'm
mother's
also
daughter.
the oldest sister.
Yeah, we've got another thing in common. And I
We
think
do.
that's where the loyalty piece comes in. I'm extremely loyal and I feel like I have to be the responsible elder sister for my younger sisters, although they're massively independent, but it might be an elder sister thing.
I think it is. And I think there's a special breed to us, the eldest daughter and eldest sister. I think that we're very unique and I'm very proud to be one.
Same. I always say that I'm my mum's favorite as well. No, I'm joking. I won't go down there. I'm not going to go down that route. But thank you for sharing. So, Louise, I can't, yeah, no, my mum's literally going to be watching this as well. Hi,
But
mum.
I also say that, and so does my sister. It's what I always say, like, my parents did such a good job at making us both feel like we were the favorite.
Yeah,
But I'm like,
obviously. It's obvious. Oh, okay. So, Louise, you manage some of the world's biggest client relationships. Are there any skills that you can explain to us that directly translate from your current role into how you advocate for yourself and show up when negotiating salary or career?
so it's funny. I was very reluctant for years to transition into a sales role. I actually
Hmm.
don't sales background, and I'm much more client management focused in my background.
Hmm.
And kind of what I've done. And I've always loved being client facing. But for whatever reason, the idea of actually taking on the sale and moving from account management, or account coordination and things like that into the sales lead was daunting and I was not interested in it. So I almost fell into it on accident.
Okay.
But I do think it is a good fit and I do really enjoy it. And I do like what I do. And kind of thinking, to your question of what translates, whether it's personal or in the role. Um, I think I'm very much always kind of upfront and myself, which I think you have to be. I think because we're so relationship based in this industry and in
Yeah.
life, you know, people are going to see through um, yeah, they're gonna see through your bullshit right away. And I think that I like to think that I have a very good BS meter myself. So if I'm not being truthful, why would you?
Yeah.
Uh, so you have to be passionate. You have to be honest. I think that goes whether it's in business, with whether you're doing client deals or client management or advocating for yourself. Um, and I also this could be, I think, viewed as a good thing or a bad thing. But I really hate being told no.
Okay.
I
Fair.
hate it. I think, Kris Jenner once said, and I'd love to quote this, and I actually am not a big Kardashian person at all, but I heard that she said this once, and it really stuck with me. If somebody tells you no, you're simply asking the wrong person. So I think going after what you want,
Hmm.
standing up for yourself, and fighting for what you believe to be true and for what you think you deserve.
Hmm.
Uh, just remember that, and channel your inner Kris Jenner from the business side, maybe not from
Yeah.
anything.
I love that you just shared that because so something you just said, you mentioned that you've always been customer facing, client relationships, and then account management type roles, and you weren't that keen on sales. Now, I can resonate with that because, and also, I guess, and I wonder if there's a pattern here because a lot of women that I speak to, they're very strong communicators. They're very good in customer facing, client relationship roles, account management type roles. But when they're asked to transition into sales, it's especially for me, I was very much like, oh no, I'm not a salesperson. That's not my thing. I'm good at the
Same.
relationships. Yeah, like I was very big on, I even questioned whether sales was for me. And I'm in a sales role now, but I remember vividly my VP said to me, well, you are a salesperson. I was like, no, no, I'm account management. I'm account management. It's
Yeah.
very different. And she said, no, actually, it's not.
I had a very similar experience.
Mm,
I'm not in sales. I'm not a salesperson.
yeah.
It's almost
I,
like this dirty word almost.
and this is
Like,
what I was about to ask you. Do you
yeah,
think there's a stigma attached to sales roles when it comes to females advocating for themselves and transitioning into sales? Do you think there's a stigma attached to it that puts us off?
I think maybe I thought there was. And I think I had this idea of what sales meant. And like,
Yeah,
you know, I would think you almost initially think of like the used car salesman of kind
right.
of like, let me put you in this Volvo. And like, that is
Mm,
not like, again, I don't want to be construed as like full of shit or anything else like that. Sorry, I keep
yeah,
cursing. They're definitely going to
no, it's
listen to
fine.
see this. And that's the New York coming out, I guess. Um, but yeah, I think I just was kind of like, no, that's not for me. And I think,
Mm,
like I said, I do hate being told no, which I think I have since a child, as I was a child. And I think that I was so hesitant to transition into the sales role because of the possibility of I didn't want to fail. I didn't want to, if you're in a sales, it's so, very clear, black and white of like if you're succeeding and if you're not. And I've realized now, years into it, that's a great thing. And I really like having that clear, um, you know, designation in between them. But I was scared. I was totally hesitant and, was afraid, what if I'm not good at it? And people just say no across the board. And then, if you're not making money, then what's the point of any business really?
right. No, I love that you shared that. I would love to highlight the fun, ambitious, interesting part of sales that a lot of people they just kind of ignore, I guess, because there's that big scary number and there's that big scary
Yeah.
target, and it's, am I going to meet my number? Am I going to
And I
fail?
and I think there's also a connotation, um, that salespeople don't work and like they're just out entertaining clients or they're doing,
Yep.
they're out having drinks, taking people to dinner or whatever else. And that is part of the job, to be fair. Um, but it's hard work. And it's hard work because you're in control of your number and how you reach and how hard you work and essentially what you'll be rewarded at the end. So you have a very unique place to be. And I actually really enjoy this part of it because you could take control of it. And it is up to you whether or not, how well you do in a sense.
Agreed. I always say to my mum, we're going to go back to my mum. She's like, oh, what does your diary look like today? And I'm like, oh, I'm going to be at a client breakfast or a client lunch. She's like, oh, here we go. And I'm like, no, no, no. Do you know how hard it is to sit with a stranger over food, build a relationship, and keep the conversation going? It's a skill. It's really difficult. It's not
It's
fun.
too. Yeah.
Right. So I think, as you said, yes, there is that side of it, but that's as equally as hard as sitting behind a desk doing admin. It's really, you have to
Yeah.
be so strategic and skilled in building rapport, trust, as you said, client relationships. I just think if a female is sitting here listening to this podcast and they're questioning, is sales for me, but they're really good at building relationships and building trust, then the answer is yes.
Yes. And that's all it is. At the end of the day, I think it goes back to relationships. And that's, I think I actually learned that I think very early on in my career at
Hmm.
a young age. And that is, going back to the days of solo partners and kind of having these it's rare, but these two men who were really helping me, you know, build my career and kind of influencing me. Um, I remember they were always so kind to everyone we worked with. And kind of like, if something costs X, but you're a small company and you only have Y, we'll work with you because, we know you want to be part of it. We want to work with you and get you involved. And then, people remember that.
Mm.
Um, just the kindness and kind of building that relationship. And then as maybe they get successful, they remember who was nice to them and didn't shut the door in their face.
Yeah.
Uh, and
Yeah, you're right.
I'm down to that.
The industry is very small. There isn't
Very,
room to be bad. Like, just be
yeah,
kind.
yeah.
It
Just don't be an asshole. Like, just
right.
like, be kind. It's not worth it. I also think
Exactly.
it takes so much more energy, I think, to not be kind,
Mm.
be angry and nasty, and why?
So, Louise, do you see any generational differences in how younger talent negotiate versus more seasoned professionals?
I think so. And I think what I'm about to say actually might be a little controversial,
Hmm.
and construed as good or either way. Um, but I do think that the new generation and the next generation of upcoming, there is kind of this entitlement that they have. Or at least they present with the entitlement, a little bit of like chip on your shoulder, if you will.
Okay.
Um, which I think can be a good thing or a bad thing. So I think a good thing in the sense of like they definitely know their worth and, feel that they know what they deserve and kind of are going to advocate for themselves.
Hmm.
But on the other side, I think they almost expect a little bit too much to begin with. And this isn't to generalize a whole generation or anyone in particular or anything, but I think, things that you hear in rumblings and kind of just the way it's presented. um, I'm a big advocate of kind of letting the work speak for itself and kind
Hmm.
of showing what you can do and showing your worth through that. And I think that if you do that and you lean into what do a great job, it'll go noticed. Of course, that's a big generalization. I know that isn't always the case, especially for women. Um, but I think to, be able to be able to negotiate and really advocate for yourself and have that sense of entitlement, I think to a degree you do have to earn it.
Hmm.
Uh, and there's a dance that needs to be done. And on one side, I admire how much they are able to kind of present themselves and say, "No, I deserve this and I want this." Um, whereas I think, maybe 12 years ago, I definitely wouldn't have been that way. And, I think that it would have absolutely been frowned upon had I showed up to, my first job interview and be like, "No, I don't want this salary. You need to give me this." Yeah, I'm a big component of letting the work speak for itself. And then that will, I think transition into rewards, into growth and things like that. And I think that, um, to a degree, we have to get back to that. We have to get back there as an industry.
That's really interesting because I think you are right. There needs to be the dance and it needs to be a balance. It has to be a balance between what you think you deserve, but also what you've earned. And I wish someone had told me this earlier in my career because, and I see it now in the industry, younger talent, as you mentioned, very good at setting boundaries, asking for what they want, asking for what they feel they deserve. But as I've been in the industry for longer, more mature in my career, more senior, what I've worked out is it's never really been about you. It's what the business needs first. I think we lose sight that we're being employed by a business and businesses need to operate. And I think, and this I guess doesn't necessarily mean it's generational, but at any stage in your career, you need to understand the mechanics of business. And if there is a business need for wanting that talent or a business need for promoting you or paying you more, then fine. Start there, what the business needs, work backwards. And yeah, it's never I've probably done this in my career, but it's never come off or it's never been well received when I've walked into a negotiation saying, I want, I deserve, I feel I deserve, because no one cares what you feel you deserve. You need to prove it, as you said. Like, what work have you delivered? What's your impact? And then in theory, promotions and salaries should follow. It's not always the case, as you mentioned, but in
Exactly,
theory,
and
that's how it should work.
exactly, and I wanna be very clear of, like, I'm very far from a pushover and very, will always advocate for myself and stand up for myself and, those I love and hold close. Um, but I think you have to remember what's the why. What is the why of why you deserve this or why you should have this? Without that or without having a proof or something to fall back on, what are we all doing? We can walk into somewhere and say, "Well, I deserve $1 million a year." But that's crazy, but why would I deserve? You need to show the why.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you for sharing. So, you mentioned previously that you co lead the Future is Female program. Now, from what you've seen, and my award's there as well,
Ah, I
proud.
saw it. I did see it before.
So I have to keep it that high up because my daughter thinks it's hers,
Um,
and yeah, like that's
well,
definitely
she
her
is the
trophy.
future, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, this is true. Yeah. So, yeah, you co-lead the Future is Female program, but from what you've seen in the industry, from judging the awards, from having a privilege of seeing all of these amazing females put their best foot forward, what barriers do you think we're facing as an industry, and what would be your advice to overcome them?
So I think I have the great privilege of leading this awards, co-leading alongside Ruth Mortimer, my co-chair and Advertising Week Globe's president. And it is truly my favorite thing that we do. We actually just got off our first round of judging for Advertising Week New York's Futures Female Edition. We finished up last week. So our 25 shortlisters will be announced soon. So keep an eye out. But I think, from what I see and what I read and what I'm able to kind of take in, which is incredible. Um, it's really humbling to be the one to be able to kind of read these entries and say, wow,
Mhm.
you know, these women, it's time to shine the light on them. Cause I often feel, again, I can only speak for myself, but I often feel like, why do I deserve to be the one to read and say, they're so amazing. I've done nothing even close to what they do. So again, I can only speak for myself, but I think that imposter syndrome is definitely real. And unfortunately, it's still there. And I think that we definitely battle it a lot as women. I certainly do every day. I think, even reading those entries, or I think I see it even when we award or we tell these women you've won or you've been shortlisted. It's, oh my gosh, are you sure this is crazy? Thank you so much. I can't believe it. And I think, as women and as a community, we do need to get better at, I personally definitely need to get better at taking a compliment and taking a recognition. But I think it's certainly real, the imposter syndrome. And I'd love to be able to, how do we get past that? I don't know the answer. Uh,
Mm.
but it's something I definitely still struggle with.
So, thank you for sharing, but I would love to play devil's advocate just a little bit. I read an article literally yesterday on LinkedIn where somebody wrote imposter syndrome is insecurities with makeup on. And what they were trying to say is that imposter syndrome is basically insecurities, and everyone has insecurities. But this term imposter syndrome has been created as a kind of marketing tool. And when you strip it back, it isn't something that's only, for some reason, it's been attached to females more, but it isn't something that only females deal with. It's something that everybody deals with. Everyone has insecurities. And what I took from the article was that by giving it more clout than it deserves, by calling it imposter syndrome, we're we're basically feeding it, and it's really an insecurity with makeup on. But whether I agree or not, I'm just interested to see what you think about that. Do you think that's true? Like, what's your view on that?
Yeah, I think it definitely is. I think it's funny. We're marketing, but it's a fancy way to say something. Like,
Yeah.
you package it up and you sell it. But I think that, um, listen, we all struggle with insecurities. And it definitely is. And I think saying it's insecurities and makeup on is such a good and funny way to put it, because it really is. You have these kind of thoughts of self doubt, or do I deserve this, or am I there? And that's really what it is.
Mm,
And I think there's also, as women, we definitely battle with the external factors of, what are people going to think? And again, it's not only women. I think certain men also struggle with this, but for so long we were under such a microscope. And I think we still are, but it's also, if you push too hard or you say these things, are you going to be conserved, or are you going to be viewed as someone who is, maybe too bitchy or too strong or too, you know, fierce.
mm.
So I think it's that balance, and I think the insecurities kind of also come from society.
Thank you for sharing. Okay. So, final question before we move on to the random round.
Yes.
So, if you, and I guess you've kind of been giving advice throughout
Gosh.
the whole of our chat. No, so this is, so you might end up repeating yourself, but I'm going to ask the question anyway, because everything we've discussed has an action. Well, I've taken away an action. So I'll ask anyway. But if you could give one salary series tip or piece of advice to our listeners that they could action today or this week, what would that piece of advice be?
So I thought a lot about this, and it's funny you say that. I've been giving advice because, again, maybe it is imposter syndrome, but I'm like, who am I to give anybody advice? Like, just doing my best. I'm trying to figure it out as we go along. Um, but I think maybe it's two. I think it's, be nice. Um, be true to yourself. And, it sounds so silly, but this is something that has been ingrained in me since I was a child. And my parents really raised my sister and I to follow this, but just treat others how you want to be treated. I think that's like, and it's funny, that's the golden rule, but it really is. I think at the end of the day, if you're good and you treat people good, it'll come back to you.
Thank you. I'm a big believer in that as well. Like,
Yeah.
two things: be kind and treat people how you want to be treated. It sounds so simple, but there's so many people within our industry that don't live by these morals.
Completely agree, and I think that people will be like, "Oh, that's not business advice." Yes, that is. That is life advice, and that is business advice. That is the best way to get anything, like, just I don't know. There's no reason not to. I think a lot of times as we get older, and as we maybe, get high-powered jobs or whatever else, we kind of forget the foundational morals that we are, taught in kindergarten, if you
Mm,
will. Um, and like I said, we're all just out here trying to do our best. You don't know what anybody's battling.
yeah.
Be kind.
Thank you. Be kind. I love that. Right. We're going to finish up on the random round. So,
Okay.
quick fire
I'm
questions.
excited. I'm nervous, but I'm excited.
Don't be nervous. Ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So, first question: what's your bedtime routine?
A bedtime routine. I wash my face,
Hmm.
get in my jammies, get in bed and put on whatever I'm watching at the moment. So whatever show I'm binging or whatever I'm obsessed with, and then fall asleep to that. Lately,
So,
it has been over the summer. It was Love Island USA, of course. I feel like it was
okay.
controlling my life.
Okay.
Um, and then after that, I just finally have wrapped The Summer I Turned Pretty, which I also felt was controlling my life. So I am very glad to be free of these two TV shows.
Okay. So, quick question: do you have a TV in your bedroom?
I do.
Okay. So, you fall asleep to the
I
TV
do. I
while you're
fall
in
asleep
bed.
to TV while I'm in bed. I know that that is controversial, but I am an unapologetic TV lover. So
Fair.
I'm okay with
No
it.
judge. Yeah. No judgment. Okay. What's your go to hot drink?
Coffee.
How do you take your coffee?
Um, just with a little bit splash of almond milk. My coffee machine actually broke this morning, so as soon as we
Oh,
wrap here, I'm going across the street to Target and buying a new one.
sorry to hear.
I got one cup out of it, but I need another.
Okay. So,
And then it
you've
broke
had
up.
your coffee.
I've had one, yes. Usually I have
Okay.
two, but I'm okay. I'm surviving.
Okay. Good. Most used emoji.
Oh gosh, I have to look. Oh, to frame. Hold on. think it's either the laughing eyes with
Yep.
the tears, or I think the pink heart.
Oh, okay. Next question. If you had to deliver a TED talk in an hour for 20 minutes,
Oh my
what would
gosh.
the topic? Yep. What would the topic be?
What would the topic be?
Hmm.
Um,
First thing that comes to mind.
Something about the value of family and relationships. I don't know, but
Okay.
I'm very family oriented and very close to my family.
Okay.
So I think I would, they say go with what you know. So I guess that's
Hmm.
and how that translates to business, maybe.
Okay. I mean, it's a valid answer. And I think that also shines through in our discussion today. You're very family orientated. You're big on be kind, treat people how you want to be treated. I'd listen to that TED talk.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So, next question. What's one small thing that instantly makes you feel better?
Calling my mom.
Oh, I love that. Me too, actually. Yeah, calling
Yeah.
my mum. And then the final question. If you had to eat one meal for the rest of your life and just that meal, what would that meal be?
Um, I'm torn between two. I love to eat. I'm a big eater.
Hmm.
Think I would probably have to go with my mom's chicken cutlet.
Okay. And then are you able to give us a description of that? Like what does
Yeah.
that?
Oh, it's my favorite meal she makes since I was a little kid.
Hmm.
Uh, Chicken cutlet sounds so like classic and just standard, but she makes them really thin with
Hmm.
the breadcrumbs. So they're very thin pieces of chicken and breadcrumbs on, and they're so like perfectly crispy, extra breadcrumbs on it. So it's delicious.
Thank you for sharing. It
Yeah.
does sound delicious. And it's
I wish I
simple
had
as
them
well.
right now. It's 10:49 a.m. here, but I wish I had them.
Louise, thank you so much for joining me on the Strategic
Oh,
Salary series. I've loved our chat. I can't believe this is the first time we've actually properly chatted
same.
outside of email, but honestly, thank you. Your insights that you've shared, you've been yourself, and I've really enjoyed the chat. Thank you.
Lucy, thank you so much for having me. I've had so much fun. This is awesome. I was a little intimidated and nervous before, but you were such a good host to make me feel so comfortable. So thank you. This was
Thank
really such a
you.
blast. What a good way to start my week.
Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad. Well, Louise, this won't be the last time we speak, but thank you again. And I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
If this podcast made you think differently or question the way you navigate your strategy or the way you approach a conversation, please do me a favor. Hit like, subscribe, and share. Your support will help others discover this podcast and keep the conversation going.